Guys, today we're going to use Strudel to make music with coding, and I have also prepared a visualization for this output song that we can use that. So here we start. Like in Strudel, we don't have BPM, so we have CPM, which is like cycles per minute, and it just basically if we want 140 BPM, we divided by the 4 bits, so it will be 35 cycles per minute. And after that, we can define our constants here. So we define the uh, scale for our bass notes as I want them to be F2 minor. And then I want the scale for the lead notes to be F4 minor. Yeah. So um, I can use the loops instead to play the music, but here I'm using constants because I want to do the full arrangement of the song. So that way, I build the constant blocks for each of the sections, and then I do the arrangements, so it's easier for the arrangement. But as you may have seen before, you don't have to use constant, and you can just use the loops as it is that can play concurrently. Yeah, so in this case, we have constant blocks. Um, so we define the intro constant block, and so we define the layers. The layers would be uh, so this is this would be hi-hat that beats on eighth notes, and so then we adjust the values. So the gain would be low, 0.16, and we want an high pass filter on that to get rid of the uh, low frequencies here for our hi-hat. So we do that on 6,500. And next, we can have a clap here. So the clap would be like 1 beat silence, 2 beat silence, 3 beat silence, and then the clap happens. And after that, we can adjust the gain. Again, we want the gain to be low, but even lower than the hi-hat, so 0.08, half of that. And then we can have a high pass filter of uh, 3000 with reverb of zero point 0.2 and room size of 2. So basically, we had the 8 times per cycle closed hi-hat with low volume and removing the uh, frequencies in lower end and makes it brighter. And then we have the claps that it just hits on the fourth step and it has a very quiet clap. And also with the high pass filter, it makes the clap thinner and brighter. And then we have a small reverb and a small room size. So then we can define this is not a dot. And after that, we can have the notes. So we have the scale lead that we just defined. And It's not working. Okay, yeah. Okay, so then we have triangle. Oops. And um, basically, yeah, I want to be nicer to do that on the next lines. It's easier to do the same line. Okay, so then we have the gain. So basically, we use a triangle wave synth voice here, and we want it to be a quiet lead, so 0.1 gain. And then after the gain, we have the low pass filter instead. And the value would be 600, so it's uh, muffled and dark intertone. And after that, we can have again the reverb with room size of a quarter and a room of a quarter and room size of 4. And then we have release of point 0.3, and then we have the stack ended. So we after the low pass filter we have the reverb that is a larger value than the claps, and then we have the release. So um, the release is like the reverb is having a decay after that, and after triggering it won't be just like fade out immediately. So then we have the build blocks. So we finish this, we can use that. So this block will be for build, and what we use here is another pattern, which I will explain. And yeah, so um, this is the kick on the first step, and the other steps are just rests. And we want it to be a loud kick, so we set the gain to 1.05. And after that, we want another pattern that would be two silence, and then so we don't need the high pass filter anymore. So this one here is actually the snare. This is the snare on the third step, and we want it to also be a high value but lower than the kick. So it would be 0.95, and the gain remove these ones. Yeah. And then we have a another pattern. So yeah, something like this. So this pattern would be again the hi-hat spot with 16th notes bits, and we have again a low value of gain, and the high pass filter is the same. After that, we can do kind of a riser thing here. So for doing riser synth sweep, we can have the note that chooses from scale lead which is the same like before, but just with uh, another sound pattern, sound shape, like previously was the triangle, but for riser we want it to be sawtooth. And then after that we have low gain, so like 0.12, and after that we want an high pass filter here. So it would be for example 500, and after that we want even a low pass filter. So low pass filter of, so uh for low pass filter, yeah, this one, and you can set the values to, and yeah, after that we have the same, virtually the same. So it would be room size of 0.45, and after that would be, I'm just confused, the room size and room. So the room of 0.45 and room size of more like 7, and a release of zero point 0.2. So this one here is the visor. So after selecting a node from the scale lead, we use saw wave, so which is good for risers, either like sharp and bright. And then we want it to be a quietish, a gain of 0.12. And after that, uh yeah, so after that it would be in high pass filter of 500. So it just like cuts low and like keeps it from the mudding the kick. And after that, we have the low pass filter. So basically, this one is an LFO pattern shape. So the slow 2 makes the LFO evolve the slower. So the evolution of the LFO would be through 2 cycles. And the range is the mapping. So it maps it to cutoff values. And yeah, so this is the start point and this is the ending point. And after that, we have a low pass cutoff that moves from 700 to 14K repeatedly. And this is like kind of classic rising brightness. And then we have reverb. So this is a bigger reverb for riser and also a short release just to stay rhythmic. And then we end the block for here. Okay, then we have another block. So another block for this, like it could be for drums in drop. And what we want it here to be have. So it's like the same BD, like the same kick on the first step, and 2 silence, and another BD kick. But we want it to have like 2 different patterns, makes it more interesting. So we just copy that, and the second one would be kick, silence, and kick, and kick. And with a slightly higher gain, and after that we can have the snare of the same pattern actually, and but the gain would be a little higher. So this one, and after that we want the hi-hats on 16 notes again, with exactly the same gain, just like 0.15, and we want the high pass filter to have a cutoff at higher frequency. So it's 7,000. And then we can have a clap here. So for clap, we can have silence, 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 clap with gain of really low gain. So it would be something like zero point 0.7 and high pass filter on it with value of 3000. And what I missed here is that we can have more layers to it. So we have the kick, the snare, and the hi-hat. And we can also uh, have the open hats. So this is that the closed hats can have the open hats as well. So for open hats, we can have something like this. So then it would be, let me define the pattern here. So then it would be, and the open hat, silence, open hat, then this whole thing divided by 2 with gain of 0.10 and high pass filter at 5000. So basically this one is that uh so the hat on the 2 and the cycle, or fourth of each cycle, is divided by 2, which slows it down, which means that it stretches timing to half the speed relative to cycle. So it's actually making the open hats less frantic. And we have the bright filter on that and low volume. So we can have a wall base after that. So for wall base, we can have something like this again. So all of that. And yeah, we want to have notes on that. So something like this. So it doesn't, it shouldn't be 0 anymore. So we define it as 0, 0, 3, 0, 5, 0, 7, 0, and 7. And after that, we want it to be as it is a base scale of base constant. And after that, we want the same sawtooth with more gain of 0.34 and high pass filter at 35 and low pass filter it would be um so sine fast, sine fast, and the values for the range would be 180 and the ending range would be 2600. And then we have the, after this, we have this one, and then we have this one. So here, as we're making the wobble-based pattern, so these values inside the n is the node pattern sequence. So it means like root nodes, plus 3 root nodes. And so we have the root node, and then this is just doing a pattern on that. And so then after these values are mapped to this scale, which we define as F2 minor. And then we have saw wave for aggressive bass harmonics. And then we have the bass loudness here. And then we have high pass filter. So it just removes the subsonic rumble below 35 for cleaner mix. And then we have low pass filters. So it's actually 4 cycles of LFO per cycle. So it would be a fast wobble, and it would have a range from 180 to 2600 hertz, which goes from muffled to bright growl. And we have this thing here is low pass resonance divided by Q. So the higher the value, it has more peaky, talky filter. And after that, we add distortion. So it would be having a heavier, like dubstep tone. And after that, we define the sub bass. So yeah, it's already should be close on this. And yeah, it doesn't have closing because we didn't use a stack. Okay, then after what base, we define sub. So for sub, we just use the root node, but we use another scale which can be, and it's the sub bass, so it just should be low. So it could be F1 minor to having the same key F. And yeah, after that we use sine wave for subs, and then we have the gain of 0.28, and then we don't have high pass filter. We have low pass filter at 140, and after that uh we have release of a quarter. Yeah, so then uh before going to the next one, so we use very low root node here, and we wanted to have a pure sine wave to have clean sub fundamental, and then a sub volume of moderate, and after that the low pass filter keeps the sub clean as it cuts the higher harmonics, and the short release is just for the tail or tight sub. And then we can have these tabs. So stabs would be something like the wall base, and we call it stabs. And then we have different pattern like 7 and silent 5, 7, silence 3, silence 2, with the same scale as scale lead. And after that, we wanted to have a square wave with gain of 0.14 and low pass filter of low pass filter of 2600, and then we have room of 0.15 and room size of 3 and release of 0.12 and delay of 0.18. And okay, so this step here is the lead steps for drop, and the sequence of notes is just it creates a syncopated stab rhythm, and then the scaling maps into F4 minor, and we use square wave, which is like hollow bright, which are good for stabs, and we use a moderate level of gain, and then we have the low pass filter that tames the harsh highs. Then we have light reverb. Then we have a short and punchy release, and we also add echo delay after that. Yeah, so like this is an echo, but in Strudel it's called uh, delay. And yeah, so after this, we can define, yeah, we can define our drop one as having the drums drop at first and then wah bass and saw and stabs. And then we can define our break 8 as stack. Yeah, so for drop one, it just combines the 4 layers into 1 layer. So then we have a breakdown block designed to last 8 cycles in the arrangement. So what we're going to have in this is that we can copy paste it to make it easier. So yeah, here's a stack, and we want the first bit to be a kick and the rest as silence, and with gain of 0.95. And then we have the same snare but with different value as 0.85. Then we have hi-hats, those hi-hats on eighth notes with gain of 0.10, and we have the same high pass filter, but a little higher. So 7,000 like 500. And then we have um, we don't want the open hat anymore here. So then we go straight for this one. Yeah, we go for the notes. So for the notes here, uh, we want to have root note, silence, and root note, silence, then 3, then silence, then 5, then silence, then 3, then silence. Okay, after that, we want to have same scale as scale base here. And after that, we want to use the sawtooth shape with gain of 0.33, high pass filter of high pass filter at 35. So we just change the high pass filter. And then we have a let me see if I'm doing it right. Yeah, the pattern is the same, but I want the scale to be different. So it could be F2 minor. And then we have okay, so yeah, then we can have triangle, then we can have the triangle, and yeah, I kind of confused this with the other layer. So I changed the values. Okay, for the break, we want to be F2 minor with the same pattern, and then we scale up F2 minor, shape of triangle, and gain of lower like 0.12, and low pass filter at 500 hertz. And then we have release of quarter, and then we have room of 0.3 and room size of 5. Yeah. So after that, we want to have web base 2, which is another, which is different from the web base 1. So for making that, copy this. And so let me explain this one we just wrote. So this is for the breakdown, which is like 8 bars. And this block is for the, we have the simple kick. So we just like 1 bit kick. And then we want to have a soft snare here. And then we have fewer hats, and but very bright. And this one is the uh, bass that has lead-ish melody decrease with rest in the scale of F2 minor. and then we have a softer synth, and then we have a moderate gain, and then we have a dark. This makes the sound dark sound, and so this is making it just having a controlled tail, and this makes it to just have more space to feel like a break. Yeah, and for Bob base 2, then we have pattern of 0, 0, -2, and again 0, 3, 5, 3, yeah, 0, 0, -2, 0, 3, 0, 5, 3. And we want it to be in the scale of base again with the same shape and gain of a little lower, and high pass filter the same frequency, and a low pass filter is sine fast but over 6 cycles instead of 4. And then we have range slightly different, like 160, and then we have 3200. And then we have, yeah, then we have slightly higher distort, and again this one here, it just make it 18. This is making it sharper, and this has more distortion, and this means that it has a faster wobble and a wider cutoff. So it has darker lows and brighter highs. Yeah, so after that, then we have another sound called the stabs 2. Then we have the stabs 2, we have different pattern. So it's 7 silence, 10, 7, silence, 5, silence, 3. In the scale of lead again, this square shaped gain of 0.15, and then we have low pass filter of 2800, and then we have release of 0.10, and then we have only the delay, a lower value like 116. Okay, then we can define the constant for drop 2. Then we group, then we stack drums drop with watt base 2 with saw with stabs 2. So then we have outro as, then we have outro as, we can have this one. So kick, silence, silence, another silence, and we set the gain to high, 0.85. And then we have, what can we have? Like we have the same snare. Yeah, we have snare as silence, silence, snare, silence, gain lower like 0.70, and then we have hi-hats, close hi-hats, and eighth notes with gain of point yeah, very low, like 0.08. It's high pass filter out this one. Yeah. Yeah, so for outro here, um so we wanted to have quiet hats and softer snare and softer kick. And then we're done with these layers. Then we have the final arrangement of the song as arranged. So we want intro through 8 bars. Then we want build up through 8 bars. Then we want drop one through 16 bars. And then we want uh, breakdown through 8 bars. And then we want drop two through 16 bars. And then we want outro through 8 bars. Yeah. And then we finish this. And after this, we want to have reverb on the whole song, which is 0.10. Then we can have room size of, for example, 2 and a little gain on that. Yeah, so a full gain. And okay, so this is the song. I also write this one to connect it to my visualizer that matches in time. Yeah, so don't worry about this line. The song is finished.